The city of Lagos never sleeps. Cars honk, lights flash, and dreams fight to survive. But in that noise, one boy made a promise. "Mama, one day I'll make you proud." He meant every word, until pride made him forget the very woman who gave him everything. His name was Toby Adewale. He was just a boy with hope in his eyes and holes in his shoes. His mother, Mama Tola, sold roasted plantain on a street corner. Her hands were rough from years of smoke and fire, but her heart was soft. She would smile at her son, even when her back hurt from standing all day. "Toby, my son," she would say, "you don't need gold doors to make me proud. Just stay kind." But Toby didn't want to be kind only. He wanted more. He wanted to escape the smell of dust, the broken walls, the heat, and the noise. Every day, he sat near a shop that had a small TV showing. Rich men wearing suits, shaking hands, driving cars that looked like dreams. He couldn't understand their English. But he understood one thing. Money changes everything. He told himself quietly, "One day, that will be me." When his mother called him home to eat, he would say, "Mama, I'm not dreaming. I'm planning." At 16, he started fixing old phones. He watched YouTube videos on a borrowed phone and learned fast. When people saw that he could repair their broken phones, they started coming to him. He saved money. At 18, he opened a small shop with a wooden table and a single chair. At 22, he bought a motorbike and started delivering parcels for small businesses. He called it Swift Move. He worked from sunrise to night. He took no days off, and even when tired, he smiled. He promised his mother, "Just wait, Mama. Soon you won't sell plantain again." And he was right. Years passed, and his small business grew. One bike became 10. 10 became 50. Then one day, a rich man in Lagos called him for a contract to deliver goods for his company. That single deal changed Toby's life. Within 5 years, Swift Move became a major logistics company. He hired drivers, opened offices, and started using new technology. His face appeared in newspapers. People started calling him the Ajegunle Miracle. Reporters loved his story. A boy from the slums who became a billionaire. At 30, he was one of the youngest and richest men in West Africa. He moved into a mansion in Banana Island. He bought cars worth millions. He wore Italian suits and diamond watches. When people saw him on TV, they said, "Look what God has done." But sometimes, success makes people forget where they came from. Toby didn't visit his mother as often. He sent her money, food, and gifts, but rarely his time. He was always busy, always surrounded by people who called him Sir. His mother still lived in their small old house. Thanks for watching. When reporters asked why, he said, "That's where she's comfortable." But deep down, he didn't want her near his new world. He wasn't cruel. He was just lost inside pride. Then, one evening at a charity gala, he met Nenena Okafor. She was a famous TV presenter, daughter of a powerful family, confident and stunning. She walked up to him and said with a smile, "I've heard a lot about you, Mr. Adewale." "The boy who built an empire," Toby laughed. "And I've seen you on TV. I guess we've both made it." From that day, they became inseparable. She liked his success. He liked her beauty and fame. They appeared together at events, fashion shows, and on magazine covers. People started calling them Nigeria's power couple. When Toby proposed to her at a luxury hotel, the video went viral. The internet exploded with comments. "The billionaire is getting married. The wedding of the year is coming." He wanted the biggest wedding the city had ever seen. He called top designers, chefs, planners, and decorators. The ceremony would be at Eco Atlantic Hall, huge glass walls, imported roses, golden chairs, and chandeliers that shone like the sun. The budget was over $2 million. Everyone who was somebody in Lagos wanted to attend. Ministers, governors, actors, and business moguls. It was going to be the grandest event of the year. But there was one person he didn't want there, his mother. 2 weeks before the wedding, Toby visited her. She was still sitting outside her small house, peeling oranges to sell. When she saw his convoy of black SUVs, she stood up, smiling proudly. "My son, you came." He nodded, wearing a white designer suit, holding his phone. "Mama, I told you to stop selling these things. You don't need to do this anymore." She laughed softly. "I'm not hungry, my son. It keeps me busy." He sighed. "Mama, the wedding is coming soon. There'll be many important people. You don't have to come. I'll send you pictures." Her hands stopped moving. "You mean I shouldn't come?" It's not like that," he said quickly. It's a different kind of event. Politicians will be there. Media too. You know, it's not your kind of place." Her smile faded. "So your mother doesn't belong there?" Toby looked away. "Mama, please understand. I don't want people to laugh." Her voice trembled. "Laugh at me? Or laugh at you for being my son?" He couldn't answer. He turned to his driver and said quietly, "Let's go." As the cars drove away, she stood there with tears in her eyes, still holding her basket of oranges. That night, she prayed for him. "God, my son has forgotten where he came from. Please remind him gently." But sometimes, God lets lessons come the hard way. Billboards showed Toby and Nina smiling. Newspapers called it the wedding of the century. The whole city was watching. Toby barely slept. His phone never stopped ringing. His mansion was full of workers, planners, and stylists. Everything had to be perfect. His best friend, Deji, walked into his office one night and said, "Bro, you're acting strange. You haven't even called your mother." Toby looked up from his laptop. "Please, Deji, don't start." Deji shook his head. "You can build a company, but if you break your mother's heart, you'll lose more than money." Toby frowned. "Deji, not everyone understands this world. She'll be uncomfortable there." "Bro, comfort is not the point. It's her son's wedding. She raised you when no one else did." Toby's eyes turned cold. "I've already made my decision." Deji sighed and walked out. The morning of the wedding came. The sun was bright, the sky clear. Helicopters hovered above the city. Police sirens cleared the road. Guests in luxury cars arrived early. Inside the grand hall, everything sparkled. White flowers covered the walls. Music played softly. Reporters moved around with cameras. Toby arrived in a custom Rolls-Royce, dressed in an Italian tuxedo. Crowds screamed his name as he stepped out. Photographers rushed forward. He walked in confidently, waving at guests. Every step echoed pride. His bride looked like a queen in her diamond gown. They smiled for the cameras, holding hands. The priest stood ready. As the ceremony began, Toby looked around the hall, filled with hundreds of powerful people. He should have felt happy, but his heart felt strangely empty. For a moment, he remembered his mother's face, the way she smiled when he was little, the way she hugged him after his first sale. He blinked the thought away. This was not the time for emotion. This was success. This was his moment. The priest smiled. "Today, we witness the union of two great families. Love has brought us here." Guests clapped. The music grew louder. Toby held Nenena's hand, smiling for cameras. Then suddenly, the heavy doors at the back of the hall opened. Everyone turned. An old woman stood there in a simple Ankara gown. Her slippers were worn out. Her headscarf was faded. She held a small Bible in one hand and a nylon bag in the other. It was Mama Tola. Gasps filled the room. Whispers started. People stared. Some guests frowned. "Who is that?" Heh. Someone whispered. "That's his mother," another said, quietly. The cameras turned toward her. Reporters whispered in shock. Toby froze. His heart pounded in his chest. His bride frowned, her perfect smile fading. "What is this?" she whispered sharply. Deji stood up from his seat, eyes wide. Mama Tola smiled shyly, tears in her eyes. "My son," she said softly, "I came to bless you." The hall went silent. Toby's face turned pale. The flashes from cameras felt like fire. He could see the judgment in people's eyes. The whispers. The smirks. He took a deep breath. His jaw tight. And what happened next? Shocked everyone in that room. The crowd froze as Mama Tola stood at the entrance of the grand wedding hall. The music stopped. All eyes turned to her. Guests whispered, trying to understand what was happening. The rich and powerful, dressed in silk and gold, stared at the woman in her faded Ankara gown, as if she didn't belong there. Toby's heart pounded. His lips trembled, but his face tried to stay calm. Cameras flashed around him, catching his every move. His bride, Nena, leaned closer and whispered sharply, "Who is that woman?" He swallowed hard. "She's my mother." Nena's eyes widened. "You're joking, right?" But he wasn't. Mama Tola looked at her son with tears of joy. She had walked for miles, taken a bus, then another, just to come see him. She had no invitation, no fancy dress, no jewelry, just a heart full of love and a wish to bless her only child. "My son," she said softly, her voice echoing in the quiet hall. "I couldn't stay home on your wedding day. I came to pray for you. Let me just touch you and say a word of blessing." Her words were gentle, but to Toby, they sounded like thunder. He could feel hundreds of eyes on him. Some guests whispered, "Why did he let this happen?" Others giggled quietly, hiding their smiles behind champagne glasses. His bride turned to him, angry. "Toby, do something. This is embarrassing. My family is watching." He looked at the crowd, then at the cameras. His pride and fear mixed together. He wanted to tell his mother to sit quietly, but she was already walking toward him with slow steps, smiling through tears. He could hear whispers from reporters. "Is this the famous billionaire's mother? The plantain seller?" One blogger whispered loudly, "This is good content." Toby's chest tightened. His face burned with shame. "Mama, please, go back," he said under his breath. "We'll talk later." She didn't stop. "Let me bless you, my son." He stepped back. "Mama, not now." The hall was silent. Everyone could hear. Nena's father, a tall man in a gold agbada, stood up with a frown. "Young man, control this situation. This is a high-class event, not a market." Those words stabbed Toby like a knife. Something broke inside him. His pride exploded. His fear of being mocked took control. "Mama!" he shouted, his voice shaking. "I told you not to come. Here." She stopped, shocked. "Toby, I'm your mother." He moved closer, his hands trembling, his face filled with anger and confusion. "Why must you embarrass me in front of everyone?" She tried to touch him. "My son, I just wanted to bless." Before she could finish, he slapped her. The sound echoed through the hall like a gunshot. Everyone gasped. The priest froze. The bride stepped back. Deji shouted, "Toby, no!" Mama Tola fell to the ground, her Bible dropping beside her. Her headscarf slipped off. Tears filled her eyes as she looked up at her son. You slapped me?" Silence filled the hall. The cameras didn't stop flashing. Some guests recorded everything on their phones. In seconds, the moment was live online. Toby stood there, his chest heaving, his hands still shaking. He realized what he'd done, but it was too late. "Mama," he whispered. "I didn't mean." But she looked at him with pain deeper than words. Slowly, she stood up, her eyes red but calm. "You did not slap me, Toby," she said softly. "You slapped the love that raised you. You slapped your own blessing." Everyone heard her words. No one moved. Then she picked up her Bible, tied her scarf again, and walked out slowly. Each step sounded like thunder in the quiet hall. The doors closed behind her. Toby stood frozen, unable to breathe. The priest looked at him, unsure what to say. Nena's father shook his head in disgust. Guests whispered. Reporters typed fast. "This is breaking news," one of them said quietly. The ceremony ended awkwardly. The priest tried to continue, but the mood was dead. Nena looked at Toby with anger. "You slapped your mother, Toby. In front of everyone," he tried to explain. "She wasn't supposed to come. She made me look." "Like what?" she snapped. "Like a human being? Like someone with a mother?" She turned away, holding her dress, her face filled with shame. Deji walked up to him. "You had just destroyed everything that mattered." Toby rubbed his face. "It wasn't supposed to go like this." "Nothing ever is," Deji said sadly and walked away. Outside the hall, Mama Tola sat on a bench under a small tree, wiping her tears. She didn't have transport money left. Someone offered to drop her home, but she refused. She walked slowly to the bus stop, whispering prayers through tears. Back inside, the wedding limped on. The reception was cold. Guests talked in low voices. The internet was already on fire. Videos of the slap were everywhere. "Billionaire slaps mother at wedding," the headline screamed. By night, it was trending across Africa. Toby sat alone in his mansion after the guests left. The lights from the city glowed through his glass walls, but his heart was dark. His phone buzzed non-stop calls from journalists, angry fans, business partners, even church leaders. Deji came in quietly. "You've gone viral, bro." Toby rubbed his forehead. I lost my temper. She should have stayed home." Deji sighed. "So it's her fault now?" Toby didn't answer. He walked to the balcony, staring at the city below. "People will forget." Deji shook his head. "The internet doesn't forget. And neither will she." Hours later, Toby checked his social media. His followers dropped by thousands every minute. Comments flooded his posts. "You slapped your own mother? Disgusting. You lost your humanity, not your temper. Money can't buy respect." He turned off his phone. But silence felt even heavier. He poured himself a drink. But it didn't calm him. He kept seeing her face hurt, trembling, heartbroken. He whispered, "Mama, why did you come?" But deep inside, he knew the truth. She came because she loved him. That night, he couldn't sleep. Every sound in the house echoed too loud. His guards moved quietly outside. His bride, Nena, stayed in the guest room, refusing to speak to him. By morning, more bad news came. His company's board called an emergency meeting. Major investors wanted answers. They said the scandal was damaging the brand. Deji called him. "Bro, they're panicking. Everyone's talking about it." Toby tried to laugh. "They'll calm down. It's just social media noise." But it wasn't. TV channels ran the story all day. Commentators debated about morality, pride, and the importance of humility. Even pastors mentioned it in sermons. His reputation built for 10 years was falling apart in one night. Meanwhile, in Ajagunle, Mama Tola stayed in her small room, silent. She didn't turn on the TV. She didn't want to see her son being dragged online. She only whispered prayers for him. God, open his eyes. Let him find himself again. Days passed. Toby's world began to crumble. His wedding pictures never made it to magazines. Sponsors pulled out from deals. One of his biggest clients canceled their contract, saying they didn't want to be associated with violence against elders. He called them, begged, explained, but no one listened. At home, Nina's attitude changed completely. She avoided him, spoke coldly, and finally said, "My family wants me to leave. They say I married a man with no respect." He looked at her helplessly. "You were there. You saw what happened." "I was under pressure." She shook her head. "Pressure reveals who you are." And then, she packed her bags and left. Toby watched her car drive away, feeling emptier than ever. His huge mansion suddenly felt like a prison. He called his mother many times, but she never picked up. He sent gifts, money, and people to check on her, but she refused everything. She told them, "Tell him I'm still praying, but I don't need his money." That broke him more than any headline. One evening, he went to her old house. The door was locked. The neighbors said she had left the city to stay with her cousin in Ibadan. No one knew when she'd return. He sat on the bench outside the house where he grew up, looking around at the dusty street. The children playing nearby reminded him of his younger self. The boy, with hope and fire. The boy his mother believed in. Now he was just a man with money and regret. Deji joined him later that night. "You're losing everything, bro," he said quietly. "I know," Toby replied. "But what can I do?" "Find her," Deji said. "Before you lose your soul, too." Toby nodded slowly. But finding her wouldn't be easy. She had disappeared completely. Back in his mansion, Toby sat in darkness, watching his old interview on TV, the one where he said, "I owe everything to my mother." He turned off the screen and covered his face with his hands. He wished he could go back. He wished he could take back that slap. But life doesn't rewind. He walked to his window and looked at the city lights again. They no longer looked beautiful. They looked like judgment, he whispered to himself. "What have I done?" The next morning, he received a message that changed everything. It was from one of his staff who had visited Ajagunle. "Sir, your mother left this for you before she went away." A small envelope. Inside was a letter. Toby held it in his hands, staring at his name written in her shaky handwriting. His fingers trembled as he opened it. But what he read inside made him fall to his knees. Toby held the small brown envelope in his shaking hands. It was light, but it felt heavy, like guilt. His mother's handwriting was on it, small, neat, and careful, like she always wrote her shopping lists. He sat on the edge of his bed for a long time before opening it. His eyes burned as he read the first line. "My son, if you are reading this, it means I have gone far away to rest for a while. I am not angry. I am only sad that your heart has become heavy with pride. You forgot the hands that washed you, the voice that prayed for you, the tears that watered your dreams. But I still love you, Toby. I always will." Toby's chest tightened. He blinked, trying to keep his tears from falling. But as he read more, he couldn't stop them. "I wanted to be there on your big day, not to embarrass you, but to bless you. I brought you a small Bible, the same one I used when you were sick as a child. I just wanted to hold your hand and say a prayer. But instead, you gave me pain before the whole world. Still, I forgive you. I know that deep down, my son is still inside that man, wearing fine clothes. Find him again. When you do, you will find me." By the time he reached the end of the letter, Toby's tears had soaked the paper. He covered his face with his hands and wept like a child. He realized that while the world saw a scandal, His mother had seen a lost boy. He sat there for hours, replaying that moment in the hall, the slap, the silence. Her eyes full of heartbreak. For the first time in his life, he felt smaller than he did as a poor boy. In Ajagunla, he wanted to see her, hold her, beg for forgiveness. But she was gone. That night, he didn't sleep. The wind outside sounded like her voice, whispering prayers. He walked through his empty house, past the expensive furniture, the paintings, the gold-framed mirrors. None of it brought comfort. Everything looked cold. In the dining room, a huge table sat untouched. The chairs were neatly arranged, but he remembered the old wooden stool his mother used to sit on while eating roasted plantain with him. He remembered the smell of smoke, her laughter, the stories she told. Now, silence filled everything. The next morning, Toby called Deji. "I need to find her." Deji sighed. "I was waiting for you to say that." They started searching. They called relatives, pastors, old friends. No one knew where she went. Some said she was staying with a cousin in Ibadan. Others said she had traveled to a village in Osun. Toby got in his car and began driving from city to city. He searched churches, hospitals, small houses, and markets. Every time he saw an old woman selling something by the road, his heart jumped. He would stop and ask, "Mama, have you seen this woman?" Showing her picture. Most of them just shook their heads. Days turned into weeks. The road felt endless. He stopped eating properly. He stopped sleeping. He didn't care about business anymore. His company was falling apart. Contracts were ending. Employees were leaving. The media said he was missing. The same people who once praised him now mocked him. The billionaire who slapped his mother is now broke. One headline read. He ignored it all. He only wanted to find her. In Ibadan, he found her cousin's house, a small one-room building with cracked walls. A thin woman opened the door. "You're Toby?" she asked softly. "Yes, Ma." "Please, where is my mother?" The woman sighed. "She was here for a few weeks. Quiet. Always praying for you. She said one day you would come looking for her. Then one morning, she left before sunrise. She didn't tell anyone where she was going." Toby felt like the ground was shaking beneath him. "Did she say anything before leaving?" "She left this." The woman handed him another small paper folded neatly. He opened it quickly. Inside were only 4 words. "When you learn to kneel." Toby stared at it, confused. "What does this mean?" The woman smiled sadly. "You'll know when your heart is ready." He left her house, broken. For the next few days, he stayed in a small guest room, away from the city. He couldn't eat or think straight. The words "when you learn to kneel" kept echoing in his mind. At night, he sat outside under the stars, remembering how his mother used to pray before every meal. She always knelt, even on rough ground. He remembered once asking her, "Mama, why do you kneel every time?" She had smiled. "When you kneel, you remind your heart that you are not God." Those words, they hit him hard now. He realized what she meant. He had stopped kneeling long ago. He had stopped being humble. He had stopped being her son. He dropped to his knees right there in the dirt, crying uncontrollably. "Mama, I'm sorry," he whispered. "I was blind." For the first time in years, he prayed, not like a rich man, but like a broken child. When he stood up, his clothes were dirty, but his heart felt lighter. He drove back to Lagos, determined to make things right somehow. But it was too late to fix his old life. Swiftmove had collapsed. His investors withdrew. His mansion was on sale to cover debts. His luxury cars were gone. Reporters were camped outside, waiting to see the billionaire who fell from grace. Deji came to visit. He looked at Toby and said quietly, "You look thinner." "I'm okay," Toby said, forcing a smile. "No, you're not. You've lost everything." Toby nodded. "I know. But maybe I needed to lose it all to see what really matters." Deji sat beside him. "What will you do now?" "Find her," Toby said. "Even if I have to walk across this country." Deji sighed. "I'll help you." But Toby shook his head. "No. This is something I need to do alone." For the next few months, he traveled again, this time not in convoys or expensive cars, but on public buses. Sometimes he walked long distances. Sometimes he slept in cheap inns or on church benches. People didn't recognize him anymore. His beard had grown. His clothes were plain. And his eyes carried a story. One evening, he reached a small village near Abeokuta. He saw a group of women coming from a local church. One of them looked familiar, thin, with a headscarf tied the same way his mother used to. He ran closer, his heart pounding. "Mama!" he shouted. The woman turned. For a moment, his breath stopped. But it wasn't her. She looked at him kindly. "Who are you looking for?" He showed her a photo. "My mother. Her name is Tola Adewale." The woman's eyes softened. "Ah, Mama Tola. Yes, I know her. She comes to our church sometimes. She teaches the children Bible stories. But she left again a few days ago. Said she was going to Lagos to finish some prayers." Toby's heart raced. "She's going back to Lagos?" "Yes," the woman said. "She said God told her her son will come home soon." Toby felt tears run down his face. "Thank you, Ma." He turned and ran back toward the road. He didn't have a car, but that didn't matter. He would find a bus, a ride, anything. Back in Lagos, he went straight to their old neighborhood. The streets looked the same, crowded, noisy, full of life. Children still played football near the drain. Vendors still shouted prices. When he reached his old house, the door was still locked. But this time, there was a new padlock. He knocked. A neighbor came out. "Ah, Toby." He turned quickly. "Mama Funke. Please. Have you seen my mother?" The woman smiled. "She came back yesterday. She said she wanted to clean the house a little." "Where is she now?" 4. She went to the small church down the street. You know, the one she always prayed in. Toby's legs started shaking. He could barely breathe. He ran down the street, past the market stalls, past the children playing. The small church was still there, old, with cracked walls and a wooden cross outside. He pushed open the door slowly. Inside, candles flickered. A few women were praying quietly. And there, in the front row, kneeling with her hands raised, was his mother. Her voice was soft, but steady. "God, wherever my son is, guide him back home." Toby stood frozen. He wanted to run to her, but his legs wouldn't move. Tears rolled down his face. Finally, he took a step, then another. The sound of his shoes made her turn around slowly. Their eyes met. For a moment, the world went silent. She stared at him, her lips trembling. "Toby?" He fell to his knees before her. "Mama?" She covered her mouth, tears flooding her eyes. He crawled closer, holding her feet. "I'm sorry, Mama. I'm so sorry." She touched his head gently, her hands shaking. "My son." He couldn't stop crying. "I lost everything, Mama. But I found you." She smiled, through her tears. "You found more than me, my son. You found yourself." He held her hands tightly. "Please forgive me." "I already did," she said softly. "The day you slapped me, I cried. But I forgave you. I just wanted you to remember who you are." They hugged each other, crying together. After a long silence, she whispered, "Stand up, my son." But he shook his head. "No, Mama. I will stay here until you bless me." She smiled. "Now you have learned to kneel." Outside, the rain began to fall lightly, washing the dust from the street. Inside that small church, a broken son and a forgiving mother held each other for the first time in many months. But Toby had no idea his real journey was just beginning. The rain fell harder outside the small church, tapping softly against the roof. Inside, Toby was still kneeling before his mother, his tears mixing with the rain that dripped from his hair. Mama Tola placed her hands on his head and whispered a prayer, her voice breaking as she spoke. "Lord, thank you for bringing my son home. He was lost in pride, but you found him in pain. Bless him again, not with gold, not with cars, but with peace." Toby couldn't stop crying. For months, he had chased her across cities, searching for forgiveness. Now that he had found her, he didn't know how to speak. His throat was tight, his heart heavy with regret. When she finished praying, she looked down at him and said softly, "Stand up, my son." He looked up, eyes red. "Mama, I don't deserve to stand." She smiled weakly. "You fell when you forgot where you came from. But now, you've remembered. Stand, not as a billionaire, not as a proud man, stand, as my son." Slowly, he stood. His clothes were soaked, his hands shaking. She wiped his tears like she used to when he was a child. "Are you hungry?" she asked suddenly. He laughed through his tears. "You still think of food first." She smiled. "A mother never stops. Come, let's go home." They walked together through the rain, sharing one umbrella. People on the street stared, whispering quietly. Some recognized Toby but didn't dare say anything. He didn't care. For the first time in years, he felt peace walking through those muddy streets beside her. When they reached her old house, it was still small, still broken. But somehow, it felt warmer than his entire mansion ever did. The smell of wet earth filled the air. She took out dry clothes for him and cooked a simple meal of rice and beans. They sat together on the same small stool they had used years ago. He ate slowly, each bite tasting like memory. "Mama," he said softly, "I've lost everything. The company, the cars, the house. People laugh at me now." She stirred her food quietly. "You didn't lose everything. You still have life, breath, and a mother who loves you." He nodded. "I don't know where to start again." She smiled. "Start where you stopped, on your knees." That night, Toby slept on the floor beside her bed. The next morning, he woke to the smell of plantain roasting outside. Mama Tola was already at her stand. Just like before. He walked out, surprised. "Mama, you're still selling?" She smiled. "Yes, my son. This is what I know how to do. It keeps my hands busy and my heart humble." He stood beside her and watched as customers came to buy. One woman recognized him and whispered, "Isn't that the billionaire?" Toby smiled politely and helped wrap plantains in paper. For the first time, he felt proud to stand beside his mother, not ashamed. When they got home, he said, "Mama, I want to start again, but this time differently. I don't want to chase money. I want to help people." She looked at him carefully. "What do you mean?" "I want to use what I have left to build something for others. Maybe a foundation for children like me. Kids who come from poor homes but have big dreams." Her eyes filled with tears. "Now that's the son I raised." Over the next few months, Toby began rebuilding not his business, but his purpose. He sold what little property he still owned and started the Mama Tola Foundation. Its goal was simple: help young people from the streets get education and skills so they could build a future. At first, people didn't trust him. They thought he was doing it to clean his image. Reporters mocked him, but Toby didn't respond. He worked quietly, traveling across small towns, giving scholarships, fixing schools, and teaching young boys about humility. One day, a journalist visited him. "Mr. Adewale," she asked, "you were once one of the richest men in Africa. Now you live in a small apartment. Do you regret anything?" He smiled gently. "I regret not listening to my mother sooner. I learned that a man who forgets his roots will lose his wings." His answer went viral again, but this time, people didn't mock him. They respected him. The same internet that once destroyed him started calling him the redeemed billionaire. Even his old investors called, offering him a chance to return to business. He agreed, but with one condition. His foundation would own 50% of his new company's profit. "If I rise again," he told them, "I want others to rise with me." As his name slowly returned to good light, he never forgot what mattered most. Every morning, he went to his mother's house before work. He would kneel and let her bless him with her hand on his head. She would always say the same thing: "Go and make the world better, my son." And every time, he would answer, "Yes, Mama." Months later, on the anniversary of his wedding, an event he wished to forget, Toby organized a huge charity day at the same hall where the slap happened. This time, there were no chandeliers or gold chairs, only simple decorations, and hundreds of poor families invited to eat, laugh, and celebrate. When he stood on the stage, the cameras rolled again. But now, his eyes weren't filled with pride. They were calm. He took the microphone and said, "A year ago, in this same hall, I did something terrible. I let pride blind me. I hurt the person who loved me most. But she forgave me. And that forgiveness became my second chance. I lost everything to learn one truth: without humility, wealth means nothing." The crowd clapped quietly. Mama Tola sat in the front row, smiling proudly. Toby continued, "Today, I dedicate everything I build to my mother, and to every parent who prays for their child in silence." Then he looked at her and said softly, "Mama, please bless this moment." She walked up slowly, her steps steady but humble. She took the microphone, her voice gentle yet strong. "My son once flew too high and burned his wings. But he learned to crawl again, and now he walks with God. My joy is full." The crowd stood up and clapped. Some cried. Even the cameramen wiped their eyes. That moment, something changed again in Toby. Not his status or wealth, but his spirit. He felt clean, whole, and free. After the event, Deji hugged him tightly. "You did it, bro. You found peace." Toby smiled. "Peace is better than power." Later that night, he and his mother sat outside watching the moon. The air was cool, and the street was quiet. She looked at him and said, "You know, I used to ask God why he let you fall, but now I understand. If you didn't fall, you wouldn't kneel." He nodded. "And if I didn't kneel, I wouldn't rise again." They both laughed softly. He reached into his pocket and handed her a small box. "This is for you, Mama." She opened it and gasped. Inside was a simple gold ring with her name engraved, Tola. "I don't need this," she said, smiling. "I know," he replied. "But I need you to have it. It's a reminder that I'll never forget who gave me everything." She touched his cheek gently. "You've already given me the best gift, a humble heart." Years later, Toby's new company, Swift Move Foundation Logistics, became successful again. But this time, it was known for its honesty and charity. Every year, he and his mother visited schools, orphanages, and hospitals, helping people who once lived like he did. He didn't live in a mansion anymore, but in a modest house beside his mother's. They shared dinner every evening, laughing and talking about the old days. One day, during a live interview, the host asked him, "Mr. Adewale, what would you say to people chasing success?" He smiled gently. "Success is not when you're on magazine covers. Success is when your mother prays for you and smiles." The studio went silent. Viewers across the country felt that line in their hearts. Later that night, he posted a short video online, a photo of him kneeling before his mother, with the caption, "A man can touch the sky with wealth, but without his mother's blessing, he'll fall to the ground forever." The post spread across Africa like wildfire. People shared it, quoted it, cried over it. Some even went to visit their mothers after watching. Toby didn't chase fame anymore, but somehow it found him again, this time not as a billionaire, but as a man reborn. One evening, years later, Mama Tola sat quietly in her chair, watching her son speak at another charity event on TV. Her eyes filled with tears of joy. "He finally became the man I prayed for." Toby walked into the room just then, smiling. "Mama, are you watching me on TV again?" She laughed softly. "Of course, I'm your #1 fan." He sat beside her and held her hand. "I wouldn't be here without you." She looked at him lovingly. "No, my son, you wouldn't be here without God's mercy." He smiled. "And your forgiveness." She nodded. Both worked together. They sat quietly, listening to the sound of rain again, the same way it rained the night he found her. She turned to him and said, "Toby, promise me one thing." "Anything, Mama. Promise me you'll never forget to kneel." He took her hand and kissed it. "I'll never forget." Years later, when Mama Tola finally passed away peacefully in her sleep, the whole country mourned. Newspapers called her the mother who taught a nation humility. Toby buried her in her hometown, under a mango tree. On her grave, he placed a stone that read, "She prayed. She forgave. She loved." Every year on her birthday, Toby visited the grave and brought flowers. He always knelt there, no matter how muddy the ground was. One rainy day, as he stood there alone, a reporter recognized him and asked softly, "Sir, do you ever wish things had gone differently?" He smiled through tears. "No, because the pain saved me." He looked up at the sky and whispered, "Mama, thank you." And as the rain poured down again, washing his tears, he knew he was finally free. He walked away slowly, his heart full of peace, whispering the words his mother once said, "When you kneel, you remind your heart that you are not God." If this story moves you, subscribe for more life-changing tales.